In the words of Tom Petty, I don't know if there's any Tom Petty fans. I'm probably too old. You guys don't listen to Tom Petty. But he has this line, the waiting is the hardest part. And in some ways, the waiting is a really, really hard part of life and the journey. So think about this. There's some negative kinds of waiting, I think it's okay to say. So Christmas always reminds me of one kind of negative form of waiting. So when Christmas Day is fast approaching and you forgot to buy everything you need for those few days the grocery store is closed, and have you ever been shopping? It's just the chaos of people buying everything at once. And even though the superstore up on Dundas says all checkout lanes are open, it doesn't really help the chaos there. So last Christmas, I went up there, and I was kind of that sucker who had forgotten a few things, and I only had a few things, but the place is just jammed. And the grocery store line, when you're waiting, that is one of the places, I don't know about you, that brings out the worst in me. It's just like one of those things that just pushes all your buttons. And so I'm just waiting in line, and then, every line is full, so you just pick any line and go for it. And I'm standing in this line, and the lady in front of me, I guess, in one way, it's a good thing. She had a lot of coupons. But I don't know why she decided on this day to do the price matching with all of her folder full of clipped out coupons. And I remember that I may or may not have said out loud as she brought out this folder of coupons as I'm standing behind her, "Oh, you've got to be kidding me." And she quickly made eye contact with me, and I just pretended it was the guy behind me. But that kind of waiting just like drives me crazy. But there's also some kinds of lines and waiting that are really, really good. Like last summer, we were as a family went to Canada's Wonderland, and Hadley was just tall enough to ride on the really big one. I think it's called the Behemoth. And so for her, that kind of waiting and eager anticipation was filled with like hope and excitement. It was finally her time. And I was standing in line with her, and I was still filled with dread, like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm going to go on this roller coaster. But she was so pumped, and even though you're in those lines and you're just going back and forth and trying not to make eye contact with the same people every time you pass them, it's like that really awkward thing, and there's always that couple who are kind of making out, and they're like 14, and you're not sure what's happening in front of you. But there's that kind of, like, for Hadley, that eager anticipation waiting. Also, when I think about it in a kind of a long-term way, as a long-suffering Toronto Maple Leafs fan, I feel like very hopeful that there's like something coming up for us with the new team, and so there's this longing and this hope, but waiting is sometimes the hardest part. And so what we want to do today is talk about this idea of waiting. Let me ask you this. When's the last time you ever waited for something? Like really waited? Think about it. Try to think, was there something you wanted or something you were going for? When's the last time you really, really waited for something? Try to think of it. As we get older, it seems like those moments of waiting become fewer and fewer far between. Because as adults, because of where we live and the opportunities we have, often if we really want something, we find a way to get it. So if we really want something, sometimes we just get it. And we kind of reduce any kind of those moments where we sit and wait because we just take it into our own means and we make it happen. I definitely have more times when I think about waiting. As a kid, there's always those times where it seemed like everything was taking forever. The thing you wanted, where you wanted to go. There was very much part of my rhythm, this sense of waiting or longing for something. But as I've gotten older, I think some of those waiting moments just feels like they disappear. And I'm not critiquing either way, whether it's a good or bad thing that we can go after the things we want when we want them and how we want them. But it is a fact that as we get older, sometimes those waiting seasons are less. As Justin said, this Advent season, historically celebrated by the church for the 4 Sundays before December 25th, is an intentional time of anticipation, of longing, of hope, of waiting. We're waiting to celebrate the time where we, as a church, say Jesus came and God became one of us. It's this anticipation of this little baby born to this Jewish family and to this nation that was hard-pressed but felt like they were chosen people of God who are waiting for this promised one, this Messiah, this hope for their nation. Jesus was born into this setting. And so as a church, we kind of remember this rhythm, this yearly rhythm of waiting, of longing, of expectation. And so we haven't been able to do that the last few weeks. But what I'm hoping is over the next few weeks, we can just kind of catch a little glimpse of that. So I'm really glad you're here. If you're here for the first time, welcome. I'm Matt. As Ty said, one of the beautiful things as we grow as a church is that we are just this big family figuring it out. And if you're a parent here and your kid's at the back and they're playing with cars or they're crying, whatever, don't even sweat it. It doesn't even matter if there's noise in the room. We're just glad you're here and hope the wheels don't come off in the baby's mouth. I guess that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping for really good things at the back there. I don't know why I have said that. It's like horrific moment, so I don't know why I said that. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to take a look at why Jesus was the fulfillment of this national longing. Why Jesus was the answer to this hope for this nation, this people group, and he ended up being that person. So what I want you to do is grab your Bibles and turn to Isaiah chapter 9. What we're going to look at is throughout the Old Testament, there's loads of prophecies of foretelling this one who was to come, this hope who was to come, this Messiah. And so what we want to do is take a look at one of these prophecies this morning, and then we want to look at the Christmas story and see how Jesus kind of is the answer for that. That this nation, these people were longing for a Messiah, and how Jesus is the one who addresses. And as we read, I should mention too, one of the things we like to do as a church is that we like to hear and listen to each other. So what we'll do is a couple points this morning is we're going to get you to turn to your table groups and meet some people if you don't know who you're sitting with yet, and just talk about a couple questions. There'll be short little windows where you chat, and then we'll open it up to get you guys to kind of shout out some thoughts and ideas that come up as we're kind of reading scripture and talking about it together, so that we can it's still very much like I'm speaking and you're listening, but we want to try to dismantle that a little bit by hearing from each other and what's going on as we read scripture, as we think about these themes and these ideas. So Isaiah chapter 9, if you have your Bible, grab it. It will be up here, and I will read it through for you, and then we'll keep going. It says, "Nevertheless, that time of darkness and despair will not go on forever. The land of Zebulun and Naphtali will be humbled, but there will be a time in the future when Galilee of the Gentiles, which lies along the road that runs between the Jordan and the sea, will be filled with glory. The people who walk in darkness will see a great light. For those who live in the land of deep darkness, a light will shine. You will enlarge the nation of Israel, and its people will rejoice. They will rejoice before you as people rejoice at the harvest, and like warriors dividing the plunder. For you will break the yoke of their slavery and lift the heavy burden from their shoulders. You will break the oppressor's rod, just as you did when you destroyed the army of Midian. The boots of the warrior and the uniforms, bloodstained by war, will all be burned. They will be fuel for the fire. For a child is born to us, a son is given to us. The government will rest on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. His government and its peace will never end. He will rule with fairness and justice from the throne of his ancestors David for all eternity. The passionate commitment of the Lord of heaven's armies will make this happen." So this is a really, really ancient prophecy that's looking ahead to this one that they're anticipating, hoping for. They use the term Messiah to describe this one they were waiting for, this rescue for their people, for their nation. So we're going to fast forward here some like 700 and something years. We're fast forwarding way into the future, into part of the Christmas story, where I want to read, it's from Luke chapter 2. And we're going to come back to Mary hearing from the angel about that she would become pregnant. We're going to talk about that next week. So we're kind of fast forwarding. Jesus has already been born, so we're really skipping over parts because I want to talk about how in some of that prophecy and this expectation, what happens in this really, really cool part of the story in Luke chapter 2, some 700 years after Isaiah wrote the prophecy. And think about it this way. Year after year after year, built into this longing and waiting and hope is this yearning for the Messiah. So I would imagine every time a woman was about to have a baby, maybe some of her thought was, I wonder if that my child will be the one that we're waiting for. I think in that it's just like, I wonder when, I wonder when, I wonder when. So 700 years later, this is not a short wait in the line waiting to get on the roller coaster or at a grocery store like Grumpy Matt with the lady with the coupons. This is like centuries of waiting. So Luke chapter 2 begins at I'll begin at verse 21. It says this: 8 days later, this 8 days after Jesus was born, when the baby was circumcised, he was named Jesus, the name given to him by the angel even before he was conceived. Then it was time for their purification offering, as required by the law of Moses, after the birth of a child. So his parents took him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. The law of the Lord says, if a woman's first child is a boy, he must be dedicated to the Lord. So they offered the sacrifice required by the law of the Lord, either a pair of turtle doves or 2 young pigeons. At that time, there was a man in Jerusalem named Simeon. He was righteous and devout and was eagerly awaiting eagerly waiting for the Messiah to come and rescue Israel. Even in him, he is just waiting and waiting. Note this, the Holy Spirit was upon him and had revealed to him that he would not die until he had seen the Lord's Messiah. That day the Spirit led him to the temple. So when Mary and Joseph came to present the baby Jesus to the Lord as the law required, Simeon was there. He took the child in his arms and praised God, saying, Sovereign Lord, now let your servant die in peace, as you have promised. I have seen your salvation, which you have prepared for all people. He is a light to reveal God to the nations, and he is the glory of your people Israel. Jesus' parents were amazed at what was being said about him. Then Simeon blessed them, and he said to Mary, the baby's mother, This child is destined to cause many in Israel to fall, and many others to rise. He has been sent as a sign from God, but many will oppose him. As a result, the deepest thoughts of many hearts will be revealed, and a sword will pierce your very soul. So I'm going to send you back to your tables in just a second, but here's just a few really, really quick thoughts. So sometimes when you think about Jesus and his ancestry, the things we know about Jesus, it's really, really important to always keep in mind that he was fully born into a Jewish family, into a Jewish culture, a Jewish nation, 100% Jewish. And what Mary and Joseph are doing in this moment when they bring their baby to the temple is they're following this set of rules and order that was given way, 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 hundreds and hundreds of years ago as this rhythm of law and order for the people, the law. So what they're doing is there's this stipulation that says after a woman has had a baby, there's a certain period of time where she's considered ceremonially unclean. And after that period of days has passed, it's 40 days, she used to go and offer an offering. And so what we see here is Mary and Joseph are following the rhythm of being Jewish people, being a part of this nation. And they're doing exactly what they're supposed to do. And so they go to the temple, and there's instances of purification, presentation, and dedication. And if you want, you can look up these passages. But it's the idea of offering this sacrifice. And I should note that what they're offering is kind of like the poor man's version of the offering. The pigeons or the doves are the cheap way of meeting the requirements of the law. So there's not this great affluence or pomp and circumstance. They're coming together to do what they must do because they're just a regular Jewish family. And as they're at the temple, they meet this guy named Simeon. It's so interesting that the Spirit of God is on him, and somehow he's drawn to the temple that day through the way God works, and he recognizes in Jesus that this is the one we've been waiting for. And so all these centuries of prophecy and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, in that moment, Simeon recognizes in the baby, this is the one we've been waiting for. Day after day. And God has promised him that you won't die until you see God's salvation. Now, when I think about that, I wonder how far in advance he would make plans, right? Like, would he think, man, I got something really great next weekend, great family wedding or something. I really hope, it's been like centuries, so maybe you can just hold off until the party's done. Really want to make sure I make it to that. There's a sense of like, he knows he's going to see the Messiah, but what does that do to you when you know at some point in my life that's going to happen? Obviously, we see this perseverance and this faithfulness in the waiting. He demonstrates that to us. He's this wise and devout. Think of like this wise old sage, soft-hearted, waiting and expecting, longing and yearning for the Messiah to come. I was never really good at waiting even as a kid when I think back. So when I was about 16 or 17, some friends and I, we started playing music together, and we thought we were really, really good in the moments, but now looking back, I can't even, it was probably atrocious, but I was learning to play the guitar. I didn't have a guitar, so I kept borrowing one from different friends, and I'd keep them for months at a time and then hand it back. And finally, my parents got to the place where I think they wanted to get me a guitar for Christmas. So my parents are very proactive people, so I think we bought the guitar in the summer, knowing that we'd have it in plenty of time for December, for the big guitar rush, at the music store. So anyway, so it was in my mom's closet for months. And I was not good at waiting or pretending it wasn't there and just being hopeful. Every time my parents, I knew they were out of the house, I'd sneak to my parents' room, I'd get the guitar out of the closet, and I really only knew 2 songs. I knew Free Fallin' by Tom Petty, and I knew 38 Years Old by the Tragically Hip. Those are like my 2 go-tos. 38 years old, never kissed a girl. Do you know that one? Anyways, so those are like my 2 go-tos. And when you're learning to play an instrument, you don't care that you only know 2 things. You just play them for hours, and you think you're just killing it. You think you are a guitar player. I was not good at this idea of waiting. But in Simeon, somehow we see this faithful waiting and patience and this wisdom. And in that moment, he recognizes that this is the one we have been waiting for. And what does he do? This moment where all this history kind of like lands in this moment, he then turns to the future and gives another prophecy. He's kind of like this tipping and turning point where he recognizes everything that's come before them is met in this baby, and then he points them to the future. So this is after he takes the baby. He says, "Sovereign Lord, now let your servant die in peace as you have promised. I have seen your salvation, which you have prepared for all people." So it's really, really interesting what you guys mentioned, that there is this turning point of this baby is the fulfillment of all these centuries of longing and waiting. And in the prophecy of Simeon, it kind of turns and he gives this picture of the future. And what was once exclusive for the people of Israel, he's now using for all people language, which is really, really fascinating. And I'm sure Mary and Joseph don't fully understand what that means. But there's what was once kind of exclusive to an ethnic and national group, the nation of Israel, this Messiah for them, to rescue them, to free them, to help them establish their kingdom, everything they thought that would mean. In this prophecy now, all of a sudden, it's this language of all people. I think for the parents, right, if you just have this baby, 8 days later, this like really nice old man takes your baby and gives like, I just picture it like that monkey in Lion King, and he gives one of these, like that's probably a terrible like analogy, but that's kind of the picture. Like he holds this baby and he gives this prophecy. I imagine Mary and Joseph are like, wait a second, like we've had this baby a week, and all of a sudden like this baby is the one for everyone. Like this is our baby, this is our family, this is what we've been waiting for and longing for. It's really interesting though. The turn there is that what we notice is that Jesus is for all people. That the fulfillment of this ancient prophecy isn't just for the nation of Israel, it's for everyone. Remember when we read Isaiah chapter 9, we talked about people who are walking in darkness will see a great light. And this theme of light to the people continues on all the way through the New Testament story. That Jesus is this one who brings light and illuminates the darkness. People walking in the darkness have seen a great light. And this is the moment of transition when Jesus arrives. I want to take you back again. Isaiah chapter 60. Here's another prophecy. As we're bouncing around, it'll be interesting to see how your mind makes some connections. But this is another prophecy that said this: "Arise, Jerusalem, let your light shine for all to see. For the glory of the Lord rises to shine on you. Darkness as black as night covers all the nations of the earth, but the glory of the Lord rises and appears over you. All nations will come to your light. Mighty kings will come to see your radiance. Look and see, for everyone is coming home. Your sons are coming from distant lands. Your little daughters are being carried home. Your eyes will shine, and your heart will thrill with joy." This transition for Jesus, this what was once exclusive is now being inclusive, available for everyone. This is like a turning point that allows us, 2,000 years later, to say that we have inclusion and part of this story. That Jesus is throwing kind of it open for us and saying, you are a part of what is to come. And it's really interesting as we will continue to explore Jesus and his teachings, that this turning point from being an exclusive thing for an ethnic national identity, the Israelites becoming available to everyone, was something that for some people was hopeful and for other people was so divisive and ugly that it caused turmoil in the church and in the nation. But as Jesus comes to establish this kingdom, it wasn't in the way that, as we read in chapter 9, where it felt like it was very militaristic, about power, about dominance, about geography. It was this opening up about being available for all people. And we see ourselves on this side of the story recognizing that we're in line as part of that. When Jesus comes and he establishes this kingdom, this new way of being, this identity, and he gives us then ownership in carrying on and stewarding this message, this mission. We see ourselves in the flow. And in some ways, we're kind of living between the two. We recognize that Jesus came. We believe that as followers of Jesus, recognize Jesus came. He's given us this mission, but we're still living in this sense of anticipation and hope. Because as we follow Jesus, we believe that Jesus is actually coming again. So we're kind of sandwiched in the middle again. We are a people, a collection of individuals who call ourselves spiritual family, globally, who are recognizing what happened, but also recognizing what is to come. We still have this sense of waiting, of longing, of yearning. We're in that place. And Christmas for us provides the opportunity for us to stop and consider, what does it mean to wait? What does that look like for us? To wait, to pause, to reflect and remember what God has done and what God is going to be doing. So what I want us to do is to spend a moment thinking about what it means to wait. I came across this earlier in the week. It's called The Art of Waiting. I want to read this. It's a reflection. Um, there is this about waiting. It is multifaceted. We can wait in fear. We can wait in joyous expectation. We can be content to wait, to be understood when God strikes a moment, rather than trying to turn the clock, the calendar, ahead to our preferred moment of now. We can stand patiently or irritably in the line at the airport. We can wait with the deliciousness of a child waiting for Christmas. We can wait in peace for God to strike his own moment, reveal his own plans, unveil the demands of his love. And we can see all life, and it's often bewildering hours and events as a waiting to see the face of God, which vision is less than the explanation of life on earth, than a revelation of the mystery of his love. It is ours to determine how we wait. And Advent dawns upon our hearts and souls each year to educate us in the art, the bliss, the peace, the pain, and the wonder of waiting. So the question I want you to consider is, how are you waiting this season? Christmas is a couple weeks away. Christmas always seems to be a very exciting, fun time with family and friends. It's also a hectic time, a pressurized time, a time when maybe if your family isn't great, it just pushes all those buttons. If you struggle with going to visit family, it pushes all those buttons. If finances are a struggle for you, it pushes that button. There's so much pressure that's packed into the season. But what does it mean for us to sit and wait? I think naturally we're not really good at waiting. Waiting indicates the sense of surrender of control and outcome. When you're waiting for the other person to determine the trajectory, right? That's one of the hardest things about waiting. It's like we just want to make the decision, the call, and then we're not waiting anymore. But God teaches us that there's something in the waiting that is more about transforming and changing ourselves that is so important. It's about relinquishing control and surrendering and recognizing we're part of something much bigger than ourselves, and it's not about me. I'm not at the center of all this. There's something else that's happening. So what I want you to do is I'm going to give you a moment. I just want you to maybe just kind of say this. If you don't know what to think and you're not sure, maybe just pray this in your mind or say this over in your mind. God, show me what it means to wait on you. God, show me what it means to wait on you. And pay attention. One of the most beautiful things about the Spirit that's in us is that God is like at work and moving. He's leading us collectively as a group, but he's in each of us individually, wanting to draw us closer in relationship. It's like this mystery and beauty. I have no idea fully how to explain it or understand it, but I know it to be true. So even as we say, individually, as we all say, God, show me what it means to wait on you, I believe God can speak to all of us. So pay attention to what comes to mind. Don't just dismiss it. Try not to get onto what you're doing next. Try to be present in this moment and wait on God. God, show me what it means to wait on you. So I'm going to give you a moment to pause on that, to think about that, and then I'll close us in prayer, and then Darcy's going to come and lead us as we come around the table. So God, show me what it means to wait on you. God, as silly as it is to use Tom Petty in a prayer, I think the waiting is sometimes the hardest part. I think the idea of letting go and surrendering my own agenda and will is the hardest part. I think the notion that I can't just handle it on my own, or sort it out on my own, or rely on my own talents and wisdom and instinct, and recognize that I need something more than myself, I think that's the hardest part. The waiting is the hardest part. But God, I think transformation can come for us in that place of waiting. In the acknowledgement that we, in and of ourselves, need something more. And in this Christmas season, this time of anticipation, of longing, of waiting, Jesus, help us to be present over the next few weeks as a church family, to pay attention to the ways that you are at work around us and moving and shaping and changing us. And that Jesus, in you, in your coming, we find the fulfillment of what we've always needed and wanted. And so we want to wait on you. Sometimes over the next 2 weeks, we're going to read stories that seem so familiar that it's really easy to check out and turn our minds off. But God, help us to wait and to listen and to hear what you have to say to us. Help Christmas not to just to be a ritual, a routine that we just burn through, because it's all just on autopilot. When we go where, which family we see, what we eat, all those kinds of things. God, those are great. Sharing a meal, giving gifts to the ones we love, it's a beautiful thing. But God, the most beautiful thing is to be present and to wait and to recognize you. So God, thanks for this family, for the people here who are maybe just asking questions this morning, who are on this journey of seeking, maybe are skeptical of this whole thing. God, I believe that you are at work here by your Spirit, and I continue to pray that you prompt and move in them. Give them an indication. You make us physical and spiritual beings and emotional beings, and so get our attention. And if we feel calloused and shut down to this whole thing, because we've been following Jesus for so long and it feels like just a thing that we just go through, remind us again, awaken us again to the beauty of God becoming human, of Emmanuel, God with us, dwelling with us. And that simple, beautiful picture of the baby with his parents and the joy in the old man's face as he recognizes the salvation and the hope of the world. So God, we just leave that in our minds as we move to the next section. Amen.
The table of bread is now to be made ready. It is the table of company with Jesus and all who love him. It is the table of sharing with the poor of the world, with whom Jesus identified himself. It is the table of communion with the earth, in which Christ became incarnate. So come to this table, you who have faith, and you who would like to have more. You who have been here often, and you who have not been for a long time. And you who have tried to follow Jesus, and you who have failed, come. It is Christ who invites us to meet him here. And then you can say with me,
Loving God, through your goodness, we have this bread and cup to offer, which has come from the earth and human hands have made.
May we know your presence in the sharing, so that we may know your touch and presence in all things. We celebrate the life that Jesus has shared among his community through the centuries and shares with us now. Made one in Christ and one with each other, we offer these gifts and with them ourselves, a single living act of praise. Amen.